early 2000s. I believe it was around like 2001. Just graduated college, graduated in 99. I was a couple years out of college in a MBA program at the University of New Orleans. I went to a gym one day. If you're from the New Orleans area, you might know in the Metairie area used to be a building called the Galleria. They had a gym, top floor of that building, and that's where I worked out. I was in there, and there's a couple of buddies I had at the gym, and there was an older gentleman there. We would always talk. He was a businessman in New Orleans. One day I came into the gym, and he mentioned to me that he had a friend that owned a business, and they were looking to collaborate with a hip hop artist for a project they had. Didn't really go into much detail, but, he asked me, he's like, do you know anyone? And of course, being the person that I am, I'm like, of course, yeah, I definitely know someone. Like, who are you thinking? Are you wanting someone that has close ties to New Orleans? Are you thinking someone that's like a national artist? So I began just thinking. He told me a little more about the company that wanted to collaborate with this artist and what they were doing, and immediately I thought of Master P. I mean, if you're from New Orleans, you have No Limit and you have Master P, especially during that time. They were the ones who were doing it big. Master P at this time was his public persona was actually transitioning from rap artist to businessman. And so in the back of my head, I'm thinking, like, okay, I know this. I don't really have the relationship with Master P, but I'm somewhat in that world, in that industry. Throughout my college career, I was involved with several different record labels, music production, artist management, and then I did a lot of club promotion in the area as well. So I knew people that knew people for sure. So as this conversation kind of went on, and he said, look, I'd love to introduce you to these guys at this company, and they could tell you a little bit more about what they want to do. Well, in essence, what they were looking to do was, this was the time during deregulation of the big telephone companies, mainly like the Bell companies, Bell South, Pacific Bell, all the Bell companies around the country. And there were a lot of prepaid telephone services, even prepaid mobile phone services, prepaid pager services were really becoming popular during that time of deregulation. So this company, they were a huge company. I believe they were like a Telecom 500 company based in New Orleans, huge office. They had services nationwide. I took a meeting with these guys, and basically they told me, they said, look, we're looking to launch a national campaign in urban areas, and we would love to have a person that is a part of the hip hop community, actor, singer, rapper, to be the face of this brand. And throughout the course of the meeting, I'm in this huge boardroom. Basically, it's a kid right out of college. They didn't know that. I'm talking to these guys, and I'm giving them some ideas, some things that I can do. And I say, look, give me a 90-day deal to bring you a person to the table that can represent this company, do everything that you need to do. I think that I know someone, and if I can get this deal done, then of course there's some money and there's some equity in this particular deal. So immediately I called up a friend of mine that I've been working with on a couple other projects, and his name is Rick. And I said, Rick, look, man, I've got an opportunity here. I was like, these guys are looking to put a hip hop star, doesn't necessarily have to be someone from New Orleans, but they need somebody that can represent their brand. This is what they're doing. I think this is a great opportunity for us to get someone. Immediately, he said the same thing. He said, this is the deal for Master P. This is a deal for No Limit. So as we began the conversation, I said, look, Rick, work with me on this, man. I think this is going to be great. we just need to track down Master P. We need to get this guy in a room and we need to explain this opportunity. And, he was on board. So like, basically we teamed up and I started doing all the legwork as far as just reaching out to different people in New Orleans that may have a contact for Master P. Eventually we connected with one of the road managers for one of the artists on No Limit Records. That led to a meeting in Baton Rouge with some of the management, executive people at No Limit headquarters in Baton Rouge. So from that meeting, we spoke with the attorney at the time for No Limit Records and for Master P. And so going through this process with the attorney, letting him know like who we were, like, hey, young entrepreneurs from New Orleans, someone came to us and approached us like with this particular deal. And this is what they're doing. And of course, I mean, the attorney for at the time, this guy, No Limit Records is a huge company. I mean, this guy has sold 70 million records and traveled all over the world. Basically the attorney pretty much laughed us out of the office and said like, who are you guys? We basically were in that position at the time where, we had to kind of fake it till we made it. So, we had, basically some credentials. We had done some things around New Orleans, but nothing on a national level. But, we said, hey, we know this person and we've done this and we've worked with this person. And we finally got this attorney to try to take us seriously. And, especially once we let him know who we were working with. This company was a national company that just happened to be based in New Orleans, but they were a pretty big deal. And, they had worked with some of the major people in the telecom world, such as Motorola, VTech, who does all the electronic games for children. So these guys were like pretty serious and pretty legit. So after kind of getting over that hurdle with the attorney and he kind of having some trust and belief in us, he said, look, I will set up a meeting with Master P at his home at the time in Baton Rouge. This time we're meeting at Master P's house. Crazy. We go through the gated community. We arrive at Master P's house. We had become friends with some of the No Limit staff at that time. Anybody that's kind of been around the New Orleans area knows No Limit. Suave Bob was very influential in kind of making this deal happen. He was the person that like made sure this thing didn't fall apart. So, he's in contact with Master P and he's in contact with the attorney and also in contact with us, just making sure like everything logistically is flowing and that like, hey, make sure you guys are here at this time for this particular meeting. At this time, I had met Master P actually a few times in New Orleans, just working on various productions and working on various events in the city. So I knew him. I think he kind of knew me, but this was kind of like our first formal meeting of like actually trying to do some business with this guy. And, mind you, I've got 90 days to make this deal happen. And at this point, I'm about 30, 40 days into this deal. This was kind of like my first major deal. Recently a college graduate, currently in the MBA program at the University of New Orleans. Business is what I want to do, with my life. And so, all of a sudden, this huge business deal with this huge, like mega rap star at the time is kind of falling into my lap. So we're pulling up to Master P's house. We pull in the driveway and, we go up to the door and this huge production crew is there. And so it immediately kind of dawned on me like, okay, why they picked this particular day? Because, P has got a lot of things going on at his house. He's got his family there. When we walked in, there was this huge catering spread, camera crews everywhere. I asked Suave Bob, I said, look, man, what's going on? And Bob was kind of like our inside man. So I'm like, Bob, like, what's going on? He was like, man, this is a crew like from MTV and they're doing something like with P. And, we noticed when we pulled up, all of his cars were just parked out in front and we thought that was kind of odd, but I'm thinking like maybe this is how this guy rolls. He's got like 10 luxury cars, parked out front plus a old school Chevy Impala, out in front of his house. And he's got one guy shining it up. And I'm like, well, maybe this is everyday thing. for Master P, at the house No Limit built. So Suave Bob is telling me, hey man, MTV crew is here. They're filming this brand new show. Master P is going to be like on the first episode of this particular show. And I'm like, well, what's the name of it? Cause, I watch MTV all the time, like, what is this? And he was like, well, I don't even really know the name of the show, but I just know it's MTV. So Suave Bob, if you know Suave Bob is a character, man. He's one of the greatest guys. Rest in peace, Suave Bob, man. Became a really great friend of mine and really close to Master P and really part of the No Limit journey from the absolute beginning, which is an amazing story in itself, how he became a part of such a legacy. So, my partner Rick and I, we began to kind of like make ourselves comfortable. We were sitting down and basically, the attorney started talking to us about the deal and he said, look, we've, talked to P and he's all about this deal. He's excited to be working like with, you young guys and he's really interested in the kind of what this can do. And of course, at this point, many people know Master P, of course, for the music, but also the movies that he had produced. He's one of the first hip hop guys that was in Hollywood independent film scene and had a movie recently called I Got the Hookup. And this is one of the reasons why when I first heard about this opportunity that I knew it had to be Master P. I was thinking in the back of my head, I Got the Hookup was all about like cell phones and pagers and it was a comedy and just like, really funny independent film. Started a lot of up and coming actors at the time that are now household names. And so I knew that this kind of connected that the part of the film, even though like the film was more, comedy and more not so much a serious company, but I knew that this kind of connected the two. And so the attorney and I and Rick and, was talking about the film and talking about the connection, but also talking about how this could impact mainly like urban communities that may not have access to affordable phone service, home phone service. Also, they may be restricted from being able to get cell phone service or pager service at this time, because at this time in the early 2000s, it was still pretty difficult to get a cell phone. You had to have good credit. The deposits were high. There weren't that many phone companies like there are now where it's easily accessible. Being able to have this line of prepaid products was basically bridging the digital divide in many urban communities. And so there was a purpose to this as well. And I believe Master P, Percy Miller, really understood this as he was evolving at this time into a businessman. So this was a great moment for us to be here discussing this with the attorney, all the benefits of this. And, basically just as a whole, like just how like No Limit and how like Master P's like business image, how this was really the perfect timing for a deal like this. So Master P walks into the room and, we immediately kind of shift from his living room area into another room off of the living room where we kind of walk into all the platinum plaques, all the gold records, all the awards. American Music Award is sitting right there. He's got Snoop and Silk the Shocker and C Murder and, all the mystical, all the plaques from all of the No Limit days in this room. So I'm completely in awe, like at this point that I'm even here and I'm doing business with Master P. This actually is kind of crazy because the first thing that comes up, Suave Bob is there and it's P, it's the guys from the telecom company, it's the attorney and, we're kind of like all in this room and Bobby is like, hey man, like the MTV crew that's here, they're asking me a couple questions. He's like, by the way, like what show are they shooting for? And so he came into the room, and I think one of the production assistants from MTV like came in, and they were like, "Oh, this show is called Cribs. It's a brand new MTV show. This is the first episode that we're shooting." And basically we go into celebrities, homes, and we take a tour of the homes, and we talk to them, and we look at their cars, and basically we kind of show like how they're living. And I said, "Okay, what's the name of it again?" And she said, "Cribs." I'm like, "Okay. Oh, Cribs. Got it." So at that point I had never heard of the show. I was hoping that this was maybe Yo MTV Raps or something like that I had heard of, and it was going to be like a guest host that I kind of was familiar with. But nobody knew what Cribs was, and so we kind of went on about our meeting. Come to find out, of course, this is the very first episode of Cribs, and if you go back to that episode, you'll see them walking through the house and showing the gold chandeliers, and you see like one shot of I think Suave Bob actually on the couch with the remote, directly in front of where we were having our meeting in the back. So pretty cool experience, to say, to say the least. But, this could not have gone better. Master P comes in, he's a great guy, talks with us, and I think the reason why Master P did this deal is we were so persistent in tracking down Master P at every turn. I mean, literally, I think 10 people had probably contacted him before we even got into the room with the attorney. And so people were saying like, "Hey, there's these guys, they're trying to do this deal, they're trying to make this happen." And so people kept just hitting him up on behalf of us, trying to make this thing happen. Master P at that time was so impressed with us and our persistence and what we were doing. And then knowing that once he actually got into the room to do this deal, that it wasn't any foolishness. I mean, this was the real deal, and this was a great opportunity that we were bringing to him. And so, I appreciate Master P for giving us that opportunity and taking us seriously, and actually giving us a chance to present this to them and present this to the world. So long story short, we get that deal signed that day. I think by that point, 45 days into this 90-day deal, we're excited. We got this thing done quickly. Master P is 100% on board. He's now the face of this company that is about to be a nationwide phenomenon that sells prepaid telecommunications services all throughout the country. Fast forward, and there's so many amazing aspects to this. As a part of this process, as a part of this deal, my role in the company is marketing. I've become the marketing director for the company, which eventually is called No Limit Communications. The marketing part of this, we went on tour with Master P. We went on tour with every tour that everything that he did over the next year, pretty much we were a part of, MTV interviews, BET. I remember us taping Tavis Smiley and getting Master P onto a Tavis Smiley show. I was booking Master P on for all of these different platforms, talking about this new venture and how he is transitioning to this business mogul at the time. During this period, he did cover of Black Enterprise, cover of Ebony magazine with Russell Simmons, Sean Combs. They did a huge article on how hip hop is becoming more mainstream and these moguls are becoming more business savvy. So I was a part of booking that. I even had an opportunity to book Master P and No Limit crew walking out to a Roy Jones boxing match that aired live on HBO, where Master P was able to pitch the new company and gave out the number and the website, and basically, blew us up and shut down the website overwhelmingly with sales from all over the country, which was crazy. It's crazy. So, thanks to Roy Jones and Murad Muhammad and all those guys from the boxing world that made that happen at the time. I believe this was one of the first Michael Jordan Productions. Michael Jordan was producer, one of the promoters for this event. This was early on in Michael Jordan sports, him kind of getting into the world of sports entertainment. Jordan was there at the boxing match. So this was a great opportunity, a lot of opportunity for me to kind of really get entree into the business world, to like the entertainment world. Flew all over, during this period. Steve Harvey was getting up his radio show in Los Angeles. He was actually still local in Los Angeles. So we actually had the opportunity to go out to have Master P on the show. I booked Master P on the Steve Harvey radio show. We flew out to LA. Master P did the show, and we actually went to a mixer later on that evening where we met some of Steve Harvey's friends, Cedric the Entertainer, and I believe Jermaine Dupri was there, and everybody from like the Steve Harvey show at the time that actually had, I think, just wrapped. And so, we just had a great time. So, during the course of this process, I tell you, I learned a lot. I saw a lot. And this venture became something, a very successful, venture, short-lived because, of course, prepaid services eventually there so many more companies got into this business. Of course, now you see today there's a million different companies that like offer all different types of communication, cellular, mobile services. As far as the hip hop, rap, branded products, and especially you see it all day today. I mean, you see, a lot of these artists representing all these different companies, from the beverage companies to clothing companies to shoe companies. Master P was the first person like doing these types of deals. And a lot of it stemmed from this deal that we did with him, No Limit Communications. And so, one of the things I think was a highlight of this, like toward the tail end of this deal, we actually decided to showcase No Limit products at a convention that happens every year in Las Vegas called the Consumer Electronics Show. We flew out to Las Vegas. We had meetings with the vice president of Motorola at the time. We had meetings with a company called VTech, which is the leading company even today for children electronics. At the time, they were also one of the manufacturers for many of the paging devices that people used worldwide. So, we took meetings with Motorola and VTech. I think one of the most important meetings that we took during the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is a one-on-one meeting that I actually had with Russell Simmons. So Russell Simmons was actually working with Motorola as well, and he was actually working with a prepaid credit card company and a prepaid telecom company, similar to what we were doing. He told us a little bit about it, and this was the very beginning of what became Rush Card. If you guys remember Rush Card. So this was the beginning talks of what eventually became Rush Card. I had about a 30-minute one-on-one conversation with Russell Simmons where we talked about what I was doing for Master P and how I bought this deal together. And, very interesting hearing the things that he had going on during this time. Russell Simmons eventually partnered with the guys that we were partners with in the telecom company, and Rush Communications had its genesis. And so, of course, Russell Simmons, the rest is history as far as that goes. So this is just a little, kind of parlay into a lot of people ask me, how was I connected to No Limit and No Limit Records and Master P, Percy Miller? How were you connected? And I see this, I've posted pictures over the years and people see it in my bio, and they ask me about it all the time. And so that's just a little story on how I worked with Master P. And I still consider him a friend to this day. Worked with many of his artists since then. I've managed some of his artists since then, and we had a great working relationship, and we were true business partners. It wasn't a thing where he hired me or I worked for actually No Limit. We actually came together, and my company at the time formed a company with No Limit. We became partners in this deal with the telecommunications company. I took an equity position in that company, which later I was able to exit from. It was a great experience. So shout out to Master P, No Limit, and New Orleans. Of course, my alma mater, University of New Orleans. One of my best friends and business partners, Rick Spearman. I could not have done that deal without him. And shout out to the guy that was in the gym who saw like a young guy that could kind of handle pulling all this together. I believe I was 22 or 23 at the time, my first year of business school. Shout out to that guy because this opportunity truly changed my life. And so now you know.